Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about how, and I've done a few other videos on this, but how ideology is not creeping into, but is galloping into the justice systems all across the Western world. It could be in Australia, United States, Britain, Canada, and so on. And it's been sort of gradually coming along, I guess, but it seems to have picked up speed now. And I'd like to just talk about that and about the things that I've noticed and the effects, and even how this ideological justice is even starting to encroach upon some of the older judges who are going to retire in the next few years, who remember and used to practice the law that relied solely on facts and evidence. It's not that they don't anymore, but it's starting to or it has already, I think, shifted into a semi in America, a semi state of ideology. So there are those that are ideological, judges that are ideological all the way through, and those that are sort of moving in that direction. And so I'll talk a little bit about that. Now, I've mentioned some of these things before, so I'm putting this together in sort of one story. But I went into a court. This is like in Australia, they're called like courts of petty sessions anyway. And it's kind of smaller stuff, less than $1,000 type legal complaint, and or it might be a bit more now, but it was then. And I was just surprised at how it's a junior judge. I mean, they're sometimes, called junior magistrates or judicial registrars, that sort of stuff. But so it's a fairly junior type of judge. But the judge, if there was a contest between two people and one appeared to be better off than the other one, the judge would say, well, why don't you just pay it? Why are you not paying? Just pay the money. Just give the money. It's easier for everybody if you just pay, on the basis that one person is, one guy's dressed in a sharp suit and the other one's dressed in jeans or something like that with holes in it. So now the judge isn't even looking at the facts or the evidence. It's just like, hey, who cares? The equitable outcome, the equity is if the better off person just gives money to the poorer person, regardless of the merit of the case or the facts or the evidence. And I found this, I sort of noticed this was a frequent occurrence. The other thing they do is if they try and get the parties to go away and negotiate, but if nothing happens, it's the fault of the wealthier party. The guy with the most money could have solved it by giving the poorer guy the money, but he didn't. Therefore, he's the bad guy. Therefore, the judge will find will not find in the wealthier person's favour. Now, the difference in wealth might be quite minor. So the judge is sort of picking winners and saying, I think that guy's richer than that guy. That guy speaks better. He's probably had a better education than that guy. So I'll decide in favour of the guy who hasn't had as good an education, that type of thing. Now, that's kind of a weird form of social ideological justice. And if you're an ideological sort of fanatic or something like that, or someone that doesn't care about the law, or care about facts, or care about evidence, then that may seem good. It's the sort of thing that maybe you have wild dreams about it at night, about the justice of it all. Oh, I'm helping the oppressed, and that's it. But that's not their job as a judge. If they want to go and be a social worker on the mean streets or something, well, fine, go ahead. But other than that, you do what you're supposed to do if you're adjudicating a case based on law. But the guy, this particular judge, clearly didn't see it that way. They thought their first and primary role was to deliver social justice, ideological social justice, and to view each case on the basis of ideology rather than the facts. So it wasn't a court; it was just some bullshit clearinghouse for social justice ideology, Marxist based. Now, it didn't always go sort of that same. For example, there was some people have turned up that owe money to finance companies, that have loaned them money, and And so there's one guy I'm thinking of now. One guy turned up, but the finance company lawyers didn't turn up, and it wasn't a lot of money. It was like, I don't know, $500 or something. So, but instead of the judge saying to the guy who turned up, so, well, they haven't turned up. Now, if the other party doesn't turn up, then you get a decision in absentia. They didn't turn up, and you get awarded a decision for $500. Now, that would then kick it into a higher court, and it would be quite expensive for the finance company to go and chase it down. They may do it, but the likelihood is that they won't. Now, so the judge could have ended it there and found in favour of the guy who clearly was not wealthy, and quite obviously not wealthy. So $500 was probably a lot of money to him. But instead, the judge started acting for the finance company. I couldn't believe that. I was absolutely stunned when I saw it. The judge, well, you should pay the money. You entered into did you enter into an agreement? And they go, oh, I think so. I mean, the agreement's not there. There's no evidence to support it. The judge is getting this guy to actually incriminate himself, and he's not a bright guy. So he's like, oh, I think so. Yeah, probably. I don't know. And so in the end, the judge says, okay, well, you've still got to pay these guys the money. And I'll put you on a 12-month payment plan to pay them back. Okay, decision made. The hammer goes down. And but wait a minute, the judge is acting for the finance company whose lawyers aren't even there. You've got to be kidding me. But that was another, and in fact there were two instances like that. So there was another one where you've got this one. This one was classic. There's this lawyer who's suing some guy because the first hour or the first 2 hours or first whatever time period was free, and so say it's an hour. Where you decide whether or not you're going to run with that lawyer or those sorts of things. So the lawyer's actually taken this guy to court, saying it went for an hour and 10 minutes. So the guy owes the lawyer $300. The lawyer's actually representing herself in court. And I think, well, wow, you must be really hard up. But there are other cases there again where one party was appeared to be a little bit better off, maybe not a lot better off, and constantly the judge found in favour of or tried to heavy and hustle the better off, or apparently what would appear to be, they may not have been better off, what appeared to have been the better off person, and so it was their fault that the matter's even in court in the first place. You could have just given them the money. Why are you arguing? You clearly got a bit of money, so just hand it over. And that was, of course, outrageous and had nothing to do with the law or due legal process or the rules of evidence. But that model is, and you see that same attitude in the say the divorce courts, where the man is just treated as a bottomless pit of money, and he's just got to hand it over. And if he doesn't like the idea or wants to oppose it or produce evidence, that might limit that transfer of wealth, then they treat the divorce courts seem to have an attitude of treating these men very badly, trying to crush them, but using ideological processes and means to do it. There's a guy who's fairly senior in the legal establishment in one jurisdiction. I won't mention which one, but there's an area that's got that's pretty, well, not all black, but it would be primarily a black area. In fact, it might be close to 100% in this area. And so, and this guy, I believe, is someone that understands due legal process, the rules of law, the rules of evidence, and not to be prejudicial, and this is quite quite diligent in pursuing those principles, as best I can tell. But when it comes to this black area, he sees it differently. He's they're black and they're not doing so good. Most of them or a lot of them are illiterate. They don't go to school reliably. They've got very violent home lives and households, and they have lots of problems with substance abuse, alcohol, and violence in their community. So we kind of have to treat it a bit differently. We kind of have to just, not judge them so harshly, not because we don't want to sort of get witnesses in, because then the witnesses create problems in that community and people want to kill the witnesses. And so, we don't like doing that. We don't like using video cams, because that's racist. And so pretty much half, not all, but maybe not quite half, but certainly quite a bit of the ideological argument that because they're, in an ideological sense, because they're victims, these people, the black people, then they shouldn't be held to the same standard. And evidence against them shouldn't be treated as factual, and there shouldn't be the effort to gather evidence against them to gain a conviction, because that creates problems in that society. So they don't do that. And now, if it's an absolutely clear-cut sort of case, then maybe then. But given the allowances, and as time goes on, more and more allowances are made. Given the allowances for them, then it's almost, it's become ideological. So, and not that some of them still don't go to prison, but there are things like, say, the community leaders, as they love to say. The community leaders say, look, we'll take care of Billy Bob. We'll make sure he doesn't err or murder anyone again, or steal a car or something. We'll make sure of that, and we'll make sure his family understands, and so on. So the judge is then inclined to say, all right, then, well, I won't put you into prison. I'll put you on a good behaviour bond. And now a white person who committed the same crime, and these people nearly all repeat offenders, given a white person has been, they'd be in prison, nothing to talk about. But because the guy's black and or the offenders are black, then it ushers in an ideological sort of aspect to it, to say they shouldn't be held at the same standard. Now, I understand that. I do get it. I'm not unaware of the practice of law, but that you hold equality before the law is key, I believe, is key in any functioning rule of law democracy. So the idea that one group is held to a different standard under the law, one group is held to a different standard. Now, there'll always be a small elite of super rich people that can buy their way out of trouble. That's happened since time began, and will always happen. But there's only one in 1,000 of those people that can get away with that. Not all of them do. Some of them do. So, but we're talking about people who are, in this case, a group of people that commit, more than half the crimes in the nation. So it's no small thing when they're viewed ideologically, while other people are viewed on the basis of facts and evidence and so on. So it's, again, this totem pole. If you're a straight white male, you're viewed as responsible, culpable, accountable, the whole thing, and you have to meet the highest standard of probity in your behaviour, whereas these people can only have to meet the lowest standard, and they're still cut ideological slack on the basis of they're supposed to be social victims. So this form of justice has encroached on most areas of law. Now, we saw it in the Kyle Rittenhouse case, where they attempted to come at, not only the media, but the prosecution tried to come at this from an ideological angle. So they said, well, we've got no evidence against Vicky. He's clearly defending himself, so we have to try and invent ideological sort of issues around it and see if we can get something up on that. And this is again, it's now pretty much the standard in the practice of law. We see it, say, that the protesters in January 6th in Washington DC, they're being treated ideologically. They're not being treated as equal under the law or anything like that. Far from it. And so this is creeping across the Western world, or is already across the Western world. We see it in Britain, where protesters for Black Lives Matter and all this sort of thing, and climate change protesters, they're treated very leniently. I mean, the police almost help them, for goodness sakes. Courts let them off with a slap on the wrist, whereas people that are arrested for far lesser things and not creating public disturbances or anything like that, they're fined at arrest. Someone only needs to use a wrong pronoun for a transgender, and they can have the police knocking at the door. I mean, it's insane, but that's how it's gone, and that's how the globalists want it. They want to trash all our institutions, so we completely lose confidence in them. We don't believe in them anymore. We don't trust them, and we're all divided along gender and racial lines. That's the game plan. And so far, they've really gone a long way with that, and I was surprised at how far. Now, some will come back and say, well, in the case of, say, where a junior judge says, well, you've got more money than that guy, so it's your fault and you have to pay. You can always appeal it. So you hire a lawyer, and the cost of that and any bonds that are involved, filing fees, that sort of stuff. You've got to spend the time in court. You can spend all day in court waiting for your case to be heard, and then you've got to come back another day. Your lawyer's got to be paid. It can take it can be very expensive. So given the amount of money may only be a few $1,000s, you're sort of looking hardly worth it. So you can always appeal it, and that option's always there. But the bottom line is that the time and the cost and the effort and the stress and so on, you have to weigh up to say, well, is it worth going through this simply on the principle of proper justice? And now, on the side of proper justice, you talk to sort of a college kid. Justice is stealing from people who they believe have it and giving it to those who don't. Now, they don't like the idea of taking from them and giving to people who got less. That doesn't work. They don't like that. But that other people should have their money or their assets, or whatever, stolen. Oh yeah, that's fine. And part of this is because merit doesn't exist anymore. So with merit being taken away from almost everything now, then the only reason people have a good job that pays good money is because they got buddies who are giving them patronage, or that's the view of many now, which isn't far off, but in some places at least. So this idea of taking money from someone is that no one has money or no one has wealth or assets legitimately. And the black people say, well, whites have only got it because of slavery, which is beyond absurd. So this also is an effect on social justice, because we're taking from money you don't deserve and shouldn't have anyway. So what's your problem, Nazi? So that's the attitude around it. But looking at this concept of justice, it's already disappeared. I think it's already going down the gurgle. We've got a view. I think the Kyle Rittenhouse case is one of the last, last of the Mohicans, is one of the last cases, as we head sort of down to the end game. It's one of the last and fewer reducing amount of cases that actually was based on the evidence. And I think if it wasn't for the multiple video cams from multiple angles and so on that existed, I don't think I think the ideology would have got him in there. So I think it was a very close run thing. You've been with Tassus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.